everyone. Today we are going to be making our French braid for the IMNF quilt along. The French braid is going to be in ombre style, meaning that we're going to start with our very light colors, and then the lower we go on the block, it's going to get darker and darker and darker to your darkest colors. So I am going to be going from my low volumes to my dusty blues to my blacks. So we're going to start with this square, and it's going to go just like this. A look at this. I started with my square at the top. I've used low volumes, and they slowly start to darken as we go down. And I'm a little lopsided over here, but that's okay. So that's what that's going to look like. Now that we've got them looking the way we want them to look, we're going to put them back in a nice stack, and we're going to start with the first one that we're going to sew. And the first one that you're going to sew is going to be the one that completely covers your square right there at the top. And then every time we stack them, we're going to go like this. Loop, 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 loop. Keep doing this all the way to the bottom. First one, and we're going to put it right sides together on top of your square, and we're going to go and sew a 1/4 inch from the side of the fabrics. We're all sewn up, and now it's going to be time to press. And I'm just going to press to set my seam, and then I'm going to open this up and press again. Alright, so now we've got a piece that looks like this, and we're going to take the next rectangle from our stack, and we want to sew it right here. So just so you notice that it is starting at your short rectangle that you've already sewn to your square, and then it just stops right here. We're going to flip that over, and we're going to go sew from here to here. Press to set our seam again, then open this one up and press again. So now we've got something that looks like this. And we're going to do the same thing. This time we're going to take the next rectangle, and now we're going to start it right at the end of this rectangle here. Flip it over, and you're going to sew from here. Actually, you're going to sew from here to the end. Once I get this one on, we're going to continue with this pattern. Sewing it on, pressing it, taking the next rectangle, sewing it on, pressing it, taking the rectangle. We're going to do this until we do all of our stacks of rectangles that way. Step is going to be made much easier with a 6.5 inch rectangle ruler. Now there is a lot of rectangle rulers that are 6 inch, so double check that you have a 6.5 inch ruler before you start cutting. I'm going to start at the bottom. Okay, so this corner is not the center of your French braid. The center of your French braid would be right in here, and then your center line of your ruler should kind of come up the middle of all of these points on your patchwork piece. So, and it really doesn't matter if you've got it perfectly centered or not. It's still going to look like a French braid either way. So I would say just line up the best you can and try to center it, and then try working with we're not going to cut the whole thing at one time. We're going to cut sections. So I'll hold this down and then cut. So cutting the second time is easier than cutting the first time, because all we need to do here is line up our ruler to the edge of our patchwork pieces. And then once we've got that, we want to make sure that we've got everything lined up and flush so that we don't end up with a crooked French braid. But once we got it up, we'll just cut again, and we're going to continue doing this all the way down until all these sides are cut up and we have trimmed up edges. A few things. See how my piece is kind of falling off the table here? If it falls off the table or your cutting mat, it may pull the fabric or skew it a little bit, and that would end up with a crooked French braid. So you don't want it to do that. So I'm just going to keep folding it like this. So I'm folding it at the end so that it's not falling off anywhere. And the same thing for the top of your patchwork piece. So again, and we're a little bit on the bias too, so we've got so many things to watch out for. But make sure that that black line is running in between your corner points right here, and mine is pretty much. I don't think it's running perfectly centered, but it's pretty good. And then trim again. I'm down here at the last piece. You've got a piece that looks like this. So we want to cut this down to 50.5 inches. The reason that this piece right here is a square was to give you a little bit more wiggle room when trimming it down in length. So I'm going to start down here, and I'm gonna start at this one corner. And what I'm doing is I'm just putting it on the other side of a line on my cutting mat, and then I'm going to make that a straight edge. Like that. Now it's easier for me to measure it out. Now you might notice that this has a little bit of stretch to it. You can see it, and that's because we got these sewn up on the bias edge. So we want to be careful not to let this hang off the edge of our table, because that's going to change the size, or it's going to stretch it and pull it, and it's going to give you an inaccurate measurement when you're done. I'm going to measure mine, and if you've got a better way, please feel free to use it. But this is what I usually do. I want to put this corner at the very beginning of where my rotary lines begin. And so I know that's at 0. And then I'm going to go as far as it can go using an even number. And my mat is 34 inches, so I'm going to go to the 30-inch line. And I'm going to put my fingers right there where it measures 30 inches. So like right there. And then I'm going to put this back on the 0. And then now I know I need to cut on the 20.5 inch line. So this is the piece I cut off. So it ended up cutting almost all of the big square off. So you've got plenty of wiggle room. If you don't get it right the first time, you can just keep trying until you do, because we've got plenty of room for mistakes. So you may be feeling that your piece is not cut straight, but it's probably just the bias shifting things around a little bit. When we get this piece sewn to the rest of our pieces in our quilt, it's going to get on board and do what it's supposed to do, and those edges will straighten up and you won't see it shifting so much. So I hope you enjoyed making the French braid, and thank you so much for joining into the I Am Enough Quilt Along.